Oh, I think so.
Well, I don't know any good songs, so I don't know about here, but anyone knows?
Thank you everyone for coming. I maybe don't know a couple people in the room, so my name is Missy, because I'm here, I'm the current mayor of Burton. And everyone has a lot of time, and we'll go through Board of Education, and City Council, and then Mayor. And they'll talk, and there'll be time to ask questions. So one of two things, if you're not comfortable with the microphone, speak loudly, and then the person that's going to answer your question will repeat the question in the microphone. Or if you're comfortable, please do come up with the microphone, because it is convenient. Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh, one more thing. Austin Eichelberry is on the ballot. He cannot be taken off the ballot, but he is moving out of the school district. So I would suggest considering the three that are going to be in the school district, which you will see two of them today, and Reagan was not able to make it due to family commitment. And so now I introduce to you the Board of Education candidates. And you don't have to turn your microphone off. I can do it. So next week, come on.
Hi, my name is Alex Schmidt. I am originally from Wichita, Kansas. I went to Pitt State to get my teaching degree, and I taught for a few years in a small town. And then we lived there for a few years, and we decided that we want to come back to Kansas from Missouri. And I got into accounting, so I feel like that's the best of both worlds. I have an accounting background now and a teaching background, so I can relate to the teachers, understand what they've gone through, but also understand the background of finances. Another thing that I feel like is really important is I have volunteered my entire life. It was instilled in me that we help our community, and it's just something I've always loved. So much so that my parents own a nonprofit, and that we do so much for the communities, and are constantly helping and donating money because that's where our passion comes from. Another thing is why do I live in Burrton? My husband and I, and we have a little studio. We started looking for any place that's in between where he works in Mountain and where all my family is in Wichita, because we didn't want the big city life. My husband's used to accounting 1,000, so Wichita was not for him. And so we toured tons of little towns around here, and we came to Burton. We toured one home that's not far from where we live now, and fell in love. There was a couple that came and talked to us because they were on their walk, and immediately we knew that this was the place that we want to be. The love that they gave us, and it just felt like home already, even though we didn't live here. So we looked like 8 houses, and we were like, this is where we want to be no matter what. So we moved here. Another big thing I want to talk about is I took my son to a park, the one by the water tower, and it was so run down, and I took them to all the other ones, and they're so unsafe for toddlers. So the drive that I've also had since it was like January when we first started looking around is figuring out what park is safe for him. As a little 1 to 2 year old, it's not safe to walk on those high things or playgrounds that have the open areas. He likes to just jump, and that's not at all safe. So my drive for the past 8-9 months is I've been working on updating our playground. I have a few contacts I've been discussing and figuring out how much it's going to cost, and before I go any further, was it LMI survey? But it's a huge benefit because it can help me get grant support also. But I feel like it just shows how much I've already committed to Burton. And then when I first moved here, I found that the school was closing, a rumor was, and I was like, well, that's literally why we moved here. We want to 4 kids and to have them go to this small town. So when I heard that there's positions on their school board, I thought that's the best place for me to start. Thank you.
Don't have too much to say. I'm Weston Cook. I recently graduated in May from this school. I am in college for education, high school history. I'm also kind of here because I seen we had a shortage of candidates for the board, and a couple of people told me I should go for it. And I hope to improve some issues I've been hearing about. There's a lot of things about transparency, which I hope I can be kind of an anchor, connect myself more to the people and the board, and just bring what people think to the board. Another issue I noticed recently is I find the minutes to be lacking. I hope we can improve the amount of detail in the minutes, because I found them to be just kind of there. There are events that happen, but if you read it, you don't know how the events went, what was said, who had what idea. So I feel like I can maybe have a connection to improve that a little bit. That's all I have to add now. Thank you.
So at this point, we'll open up the forum to questions. If you have a question, raise your hand, come forward, say your name and what your question is. So who's first?
Two years ago, I was in your same position. I ran for school board. My question to you is, I ran to improve the communication. I feel we have not improved on it. So can you give me some examples of what you think we could do on improving communication if you are elected? Thanks.
A big thing, the first thing is improving the minutes, like I said. But another thing, which my mom threw at me, and is something that big schools in Michigan, according to papers, do, is a student-run advisory board, which can help communication from the board to the students and the students to the board, instead of having some young guy who just graduated to bring all young information, or parents. We can have it straight from the horse's mouth. Yeah, that's my plan for that.
So I feel like the most important thing is to humanize the board. Make them, because when you're a high school student or even in the community, you look at the mayor or the superintendent as these big scary people that make all the decisions, but we're all just human. So I feel like the most important thing is to humanize them, which could be from, I thought about volunteering more, one thing we all talked about last time. And then another big one I talked to a few people after the meeting Thursday was, what if we do a school newspaper where the community can get the newspaper also and have a high school student write it and they go to each of the meetings and stuff. So then you're getting an outlet of learning the different information from more than one source of going directly to the website or having to be at the meetings or watching the live stream. There's another source to get the communication from.
Who's next?
I don't know necessarily if this is a question. I don't think mine's necessarily a question, but maybe a concern I've seen from the outside looking in. When the school district went to 4 days, Monday through Thursday, I know that there was an exodus that had all sorts of reasons behind it, but as a parent who had already had kids graduate, my first thought and my kids' thought were, wow, I would never go to school on Friday. Not for games, not for anything. If I only had to go to school 4 days a week, I would take 3-day weekends. And I think parents would too. I would.
Yeah.
So I guess I would like to ask, as you're going into the school board, if you guys would be willing to consider looking at the fact that sports has dropped down, people aren't there on Fridays, and I'm not saying there is, but is there a correlation? So would you be open to looking at maybe what the correlation of no Fridays is for games?
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something I think is really on. Looking at, thinking about it. So my background in teaching is I taught family and consumer sciences, home ec classes. So the child development side of me is coming out and thinking the benefit of a child not sitting in a classroom for 5 days a week. And the benefit, I think, when I did my research, it was because the gas prices a couple of years ago, that's what kind of initiated it. But I also see the impact, but I think that's what I heard, but I also see the impact of, like you said, it makes people not want to come around anymore. So I mean, I would be totally interested in researching that more. And even like surveying the parents and students, I think would be beneficial. And just seeing sports and other extracurricular activities, because I mean, sports are not everything. But yeah.
I don't think there's a correlation between the 4-day week and our lack of sports and extracurriculars, but that is something that can be looked into. But the 4-day has done decent stuff to bring teachers in. A lot of teachers we try to bring in get excited when they see a 4-day. It's done kind of okay bringing kids in, because parents either think, oh yeah, only 4 days, or that's an extra day I have to watch my kid. Yeah, I don't think it's that heavily correlated, but we can look. And I think a big thing with why we don't have sports, and especially our Friday sports, is just, I think there's 20 high schoolers roughly. So we just have middle school, but they're a decent amount of kids, and they're always on Thursday. So I think it's just right now, it's just lack of high schoolers for sports.
Who else has a question?
Oh, I got one.
Do you guys have plans to help or participate in any extracurricular activities outside of school board meetings? Or in what ways would you contribute outside of just attending the meetings?
Nicole has been a great example for an Emily helping with sports. She does concessions on our team. Emily helped with track last year. But, you know, that's just in the school, helping with things around the school. But with the community, I have a feeling that if you can let me know if there's something you want me to volunteer for, I will. It's just, I gotta know, I'm not very well informed on community events all the time. So if I get told about it, I'll probably be there.
Absolutely. Like I said before, I'm super community driven. As soon as I moved here, I was already starting to be part of I think it was the Easter market was what I started out with, and actively was going to the fall market or farmers market. But I went to even a few community events that was, I think it was run by the rec center. And immediately when I shut up, I said, what can we do about these? It drives so many people here, and even the school events, when I first moved here, I was like, it's amazing that they do all these things outside of school, and I've been looking to get involved, and just have been doing more research of what else we could do to make this town more community driven, because I feel like the community drives what makes a town. And then the school functions, I have already been looking at, and I was already going out of town for family things, so I just haven't been able to volunteer yet, but it has already been on my radar, absolutely.
Any other questions? with that, I guess we'll wrap up the Board of Education. It's kind of exciting. There's a lot of young candidates getting involved and want to make a difference. So let's give it a round of applause. Let's bring up the city council.
Leslie Holmgren, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Robinson, test.
Leslie, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Leslie Holmgren. I'm not her now. I am a high school graduate of Burrton, Kansas. Back in the day, my name was Leslie Manchie, so maybe you might remember me from there. When I moved back to town about 3 years ago, it kind of saddened me to see there's just no life downtown anymore. There's no more traditions. It just seemed like the community is not as involved with each other as it used to be. I have joined the foundation in hopes to help bring more community involvement, to volunteer, to help the city in any way that we need. I myself have had to deal with the current council on issues, and sometimes I think that I would make a good council member because I can help bring a lot of perspective to some of the issues that other people are having and things that I have dealt with. If I am elected on the council, I will be available for people. I treat everybody with respect. I'm approachable. You can come talk to me about any issue you have, and I will bring it to the board. I speak from my head, which is kind of squirrely some days, but from my heart, and I truly am genuine and want to help make Burton better and remember it as a place I grew up in because it was an amazing place.
I'm Josh Turner. Most of you know me. I'm a local businessman. Lived here all my life. I've seen, as everybody else has our infrastructure and our housing go downhill, and I want to try and help improve that. I think my business background can be beneficial to the council in making a lot of different decisions, and I just hope we can work on infrastructure, housing, and community relations.
Great.
My name is David Robinson. I'm currently on the city council. I've been on here for 6 years and also serve on the Burrton Community Foundation. I feel that in the past few years, as Nancy has taken over, the council has made went in a positive direction. She does a lot of the homework that you wouldn't believe how much time she spends here in the city office, just with things that we can do, grant research, busting her tail with the LMIs, just all sorts of options that we can get into to help make those improvements. It's great being on the Burrton Community Foundation because if you can't make the improvement here, the Community Foundation can usually find a way to bring that improvement to town. I love this community with all my heart. I'll do whatever it takes to make it better, whether it be serving here, volunteering, just putting myself out there. I hope I'm approachable in town. I try to make it to as many events as possible. The rec things, not so much because I'm old and fat, but if they come up with an ice cream social, then it's, but, yeah.
Okay, I'd like to open up for questions. Who would like to go first? Jim?
All right, I have some specific questions for each of you that I got off of the answers that you put in the paper. For Leslie, you talked about balancing the budget. So what specific steps would you take to balance the budget? And are there areas where you kind of cut spending or increase revenue?
I attended some of the audit meetings that the auditor came and was talking about. There's a lot of transfers going between accounts. It looks like we're robbing Peter to pay Paul. I know that there's not an emergency fund set in the budget currently for the emergencies, and that's where a lot of the funds that were supposed to go to the streets obviously had to be diverted to another issue that we were having. I would look at the budget and see where cuts can be. I would like to see, I know employees have been concerned about their benefits and their pay. We need to be competitive with the other markets, and we don't want, to lose any of our current employees, but we want to make sure that you guys either are being paid right, or, if we're below the standard of what a city clerk should be paid. I would just deep dive all of that and see where are we spending money, where can we save, where do we need to focus on more, what is our first priority. If we can only fix one block versus 3, then let's focus on that. Where should we redirect our focuses?
My next question would be for Josh. You talked about housing, and with our budget already struggling, how would you propose that we pay for new housing?
Well, I don't know that speaking about the city paying for new housing. I would like to work with contractors or developers and work out a way where the city obviously would need to provide some infrastructure and bring in a developer that would actually take on the cost of the housing.
And Greg, you talked about bringing businesses to town, economic development. What infrastructure improvements are needed to support economic growth, and how would you ensure that the city is ready to accommodate new businesses?
Well, I think we have a lot of opportunities over there, and I think as businesses come in, we talk as a council and try to make things as enticing as possible to get them to move their businesses here. Hopefully with more businesses, more people will move in, it makes the town a little bit more attractive. So just making sure that we can, like I said, provide as much incentives as possible for them to want to bring their businesses here and making those lots affordable.
And then a question for all of you. I know that we currently have a 1% sales tax for street improvements, and that's going to be on the ballot in November. Do you support continuing this tax, and how would you ensure that the funds are used effectively?
I do support continuing the 1% tax. A large portion of the 125 to 150,000 that generates is generated not from Burton citizens, but from out-of-town people that come through and spend their money along mainly the Highway 50 corridor. As I said Thursday night, if you're a citizen and you're buying a car, that's going to hit you pretty good. But most of the funds are generated outside of the local taxpayers. So I am in favor of continuing 1%. I'm sorry, what was the second half of that?
Just how would you ensure that the funds are used effectively?
Well, I don't think we can use the funds for anything other than street repairs, other than I think we've learned that we can use some for water lines, if I'm not mistaken. But I think as Clark and Missy have both talked about, and I've heard multiple councilmen talk about it as well, we need to look at some combination of chip seal, dirt. We can't just focus 100% on putting down asphalt, or we're never going to get caught up. We have roads that are in such bad shape in certain areas that we're just going to have to patch things up as best we can until we can solve the problem.
Great.
Yeah, and the roads are a double-edged sword. You don't want to tear up a road that has a bad water line underneath of it. And then, you put a new road down, you gotta tear it up. And so that's been a lot of the stall is we just don't have the money to do both. And a lot of the water lines here in town are deteriorating and they need replaced. The 1% sales tax, unfortunately, yes, we do have to keep implementing that. I think it's something we're going to have to continue to do just to keep up with the revenue. I've really been enthused and excited about the new auditor that we have. I think he's well invested in what we're trying to accomplish, and we take his and Jacqueline's suggestions very seriously. And hopefully in the next few years as we progress forward, the next 6 to 10, we'll start seeing those improvements coming about that we also desperately want.
And I agree with both of them. I absolutely think we need to pass 1% sales tax. It is right on the Highway 50 corridor, the bond and Dollar General. That brings in a lot of revenue for that. And you would need to make sure, once you allocate that those funds are going to the roads or to the water lines, we can't divert that. We need to make the citizens comfortable knowing that that is where those funds are going. And I too, I absolutely.
I'll have it. Thank you.
Who else has a question? Oh, sorry.
I didn't bring Sheila today.
She is, kids back.
Okay, I have a few questions. I've noticed over the past several months I've attended city council meetings. At the meetings, I see that there's a lot of agenda items. Well, we got to table this. Well, we got to table this. Well, we got to table this. So if you are elected, how would each one of you try to move this along that if something's brought, a decision is made at the council meeting, it's not tabled. So we can move things forward. That's my first question.
Very good.
Well, so a lot of the things that we get that get tabled are things that we get in an email that is, a couple of days before the meeting. So we haven't had time to discuss it as a council and really digest the pros and cons. Earlier, when we would table things, it would seem like nothing would ever get accomplished. Now it seems we're moving in a direction where something is tabled after we've had that discussion at a city council. Usually within the next 1 or 2 meetings, we have approved it or denied it. So I think we're moving in a positive direction that way.
Well, I myself have been in those meetings, sitting alongside you, seeing that a lot of things get tabled and moved. And some of them I do agree needs to be discussed in further meetings, that some of it could probably make the meetings go a little bit longer. If I am elected on board, I promise I will not be a bottleneck, which is what you're assuming that the council can be a bottleneck currently. I have experienced that myself, and I have some friends that brought that to me, that there's a couple people that wanted to put a business down here, whether it was to bring foot traffic in or whether it was to be a warehouse or a shop. They felt like that it was a pain to deal with the council and the mayor currently, and even some of that is driven by the attorney, and they have to wait till papers can be drawn up and everything legally followed through. But I will try my best to not be a bottleneck to the citizens getting what they want done.
Josh.
I think a lot of the times I see the tabling issue is when either a councilman or the attorney specifically comes up with a point that had not been previously fleshed out. I think that's difficult to not table, especially when the attorney says, I've got to research that or I've got to look into that. One way I can see fixing that would be to not make it an actual action item in that meeting, but make it a discussion item, and then all that can be fleshed out, and everybody knows there's not going to be a vote on that in that meeting. And we're not tabling it, it's just been discussed in this meeting with the intention of voting on it in the next meeting. That's my best suggestion.
Okay, are we receiving the amount of quotes for like a water line? Are we just getting one or are we getting 3? So what is you guys' opinion on how many quotes we should get before we make a decision to the board?
Well, I currently work in the construction world, and 3 is usually the typical amount of quotes that you need to get. And most generally, you don't go with the cheapest one, you don't go with the most expensive, you kind of pick an average, you make sure you're comparing apples, not apples, oranges. You gotta make sure all 3 quotes are, one street's not 1 mile and the other one's not, or one quote's not 1 mile, the other 1.1 miles. You gotta make sure you're comparing, but I would say 3 would be the best.
I completely agree with Leslie. 3 is usually the industry standard in getting quotes, I believe. I would be in favor of anywhere from 3 to 5, but I think a very minimum 3. Again, it is, you have to compare apples to apples. I know when I used to do insurance, when you quote against another insurance company, you're not necessarily knowing what you're quoting on unless the person you're quoting it for gives you specifically what they want. So I think we need to make sure we're telling each individual company, this is exactly what we want. We don't want your ideas. This is what we want. Because if we go on what their ideas are, it's not going to be an apples to apples or apples to oranges. It's going to be completely apples to oranges.
And I think ideally we need 3. I know in our last meeting, we were talking about tree removal, we had 3 bids. I think definitely for streets, we need to think of other options rather than just asphalt, whether it be the chip seal or whatever, because I know that can be substantially cheaper. It's not the best long-term solution, but definitely an option that we need to explore. So, yeah, at a minimum, like I said, 3 is what we typically ask for and receive, and that'll be something that, we want to strive for Kevin to make sure he does in his new role, so.
Any other questions?
I didn't come prepared to ask a question, but it is hit me. So what would you like to see from us community members to help support you guys? Because we're, community members that have the same drive, at the end of the day, our same goal, probably for our community. We don't want to run for a position, but what would you like to see from us community members to help support, current council or people considering running for council? Like, what can we do for you guys to help?
Well, I know when I decided to run, I had some specific thoughts of how things were going at council meetings, and I started showing up to the meetings, and I learned that I was wrong. So that's the main thing I think that the citizens in the community can do, is show up to the meetings. Come to the council meetings, listen to what's being said, listen to what's going on, and become informed, because it's not the way everybody thinks it really is. A lot of people have these ideas of what our council is and isn't doing, and I was guilty of that until I started coming, and I realized that that's just not true. So I would ask the citizens, even if I'm not elected, show up. I'm going to continue to show up, because it's very important. The council can only do so much. Now we have somebody recording, which is good. We have the council meetings on YouTube now, so people can see it. It's out there. So if you can't show up, watch it on YouTube. And if you have questions, show up. There's a section at the beginning of every council meeting where people have, I think, 3 minutes to give their comments and talk to the council. I think that's the most important thing that citizens can do.
And I think that, just kind of piggybacking off of what Josh said, I think if you come, you find out that we don't have kind of a strict kind of public policy as the school board. Usually if something is discussed, and for example, I'm just going to throw a name out there, call him out. Call him out if he hears something that's being discussed and he has some information about that, he'll usually raise his hand and he'll be recognized and what do you think? It's not you come here, you got to sit, you can't speak unless you were on the agenda at the beginning. If you have an idea that you think will support a project that we're working on or something that you think of that we didn't already know, we do a pretty good job, I think, at addressing that, addressing the public and letting them speak their mind and having that opinion, because a lot of times, like I said, some of those best ideas, this guy, he has a lot of good ideas that, might not think of, but, there should be a consideration and move forward with those, so.
Well, Faith, I was actually planning on standing up and talking to everybody after we got done with our questions, and you kind of hit one of my comments that I should have made the other night. We stand up here and we talk about community involvement and being more transparent. I see you doing food bank. You're out there, you're volunteering, you're helping. And I see Monica Leonard, she wants to do another holiday bazaar, and she wants to get people downtown, get everybody involved. Nicole, Greg, and Rachel, they do so much for this community as far as the movie nights. Just, the community doesn't show up. We did a Halloween thing the other night, and we had quite a few show up. But there's so many more people that maybe they have negative attitudes or they just don't show up and support the things that the people that are trying to help this community do. They don't show up and do that. And so that is how the residents, the citizens, the people of Burton, they just need to get involved. We're not asking for your money sometimes. We just want you to come out, bring your kids, invite your family that has kids, and let them come to Burton. Go to a rec game, go to a night movie, go do things and see what a wonderful community we are. And it'll be like, oh, I want to move my kids to this town because look at all the things they're doing to get everybody together. So absolutely we need more involvement from community and those in council meetings and those things.
Quickly, I want to interject on that, and I know it's probably not appropriate, but with today's social media presence and everything, I love that neighbor. Let's communicate in a positive way. We need to stop dating.
You guys talked about raising the sales tax 1%, which also affects your citizens. Is there other ways you can raise funds for our town without taxing? Like this year, I didn't get a raise, I didn't get a bonus. We're already hurting. That sales tax is going to hurt us more. Is there other areas that we can find funding other than taxing the people?
Well, this MMI survey is so important. Missy texted me last night, we're 80 down. If we can get this grant money, it can save us a ton, and it opens up so many more opportunities like this water line we're worried about that we have to pay for with the remaining Main Street. If we get the survey done and get a grant for that, then that opens up so many more funds. Right now, with the budget being the way it is, I just don't see anywhere around the 1% sales tax. We didn't raise rates during COVID and the gas hike for the reasons that you put forward. People were already hurting. Some people were getting triple-digit gas bills, and we didn't feel it was fair to have another rate increase on top of that. I wish there was another way, but we've got to get these surveys done and grant money so that we don't have to spend all this money that we're generating on those projects. We can use grant money from the state to help pay for that as well.
Definitely the survey, and I'm an advocate for that and trying to tell people to fill that out. We need them. funds to help the city. We need to show the federal government that we are in need, whether it be the roads, the sewer lines, the water lines. We definitely need that. If the 1% sales tax does not pass, that's going to put a big strain on the citizens. So we definitely need the sales tax. Other ways, you know, the foundation, we've been looking at grants as well, of different things to help Burton. And the only way that we can help is, you know, beautification and help try to bring more families to the town, which will increase the revenue, you know, to then help buy houses or build. Definitely need more people come to build the town up. But, yeah, sales taxes, it's got to go through so that we can help relieve. And it's not an additional, it's just a continuation of what we've already been doing, so.
So short term, the LMI survey, obviously, as they've talked about, but long term, first off, as Leslie just said, the 1% sales tax is not an increase. It's been going on for, I believe, 10 years, and this is a vote to extend it for another 20 years. So it's not an increase in taxes, it's a continuation of a tax that already exists. It's also a sales tax, so it's not a property tax on your home. The short term is tough. The long term to raise more funds is we do need to bring in more business. We do need to bring in more affordable housing and rentals, but that is a long-term solution. To answer your question, short term, the LMI survey, the grant funds, and a continuation of the 1% sales tax that's already there is about the only option today. We can come up with a 3, 5, 7-year plan to try and bring in more businesses and better housing, but that does not help today.
I am wondering, I noticed in Josh's section of the packet that he specifically mentioned improving the relationship between the city and the school. And as someone who works in the school and with children in the school, I really feel like that relationship is incredibly important on both sides. So I'm wondering what suggestions each of you have to do that.
We do need to have a representative go to those meetings and be involved and get to know the superintendent and the board members, more communication. I think the other night someone even talked about having maybe someone from the school board, from city council, and from the foundation, all these different groups getting together and having like their own little powwow to see what can we do to get involved in each other's worlds and help bring more positivity, more kids, and how can, under the foundation of them looking at how can we help, you know, the school as far as maybe getting uniforms for the kids as the sports programs come back, or, so I think maybe getting someone who needs a representative from each group together.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned tonight. There's a number of resources the town has, and I don't mean resources as in funds and money. I think the school, the city, the fire and EMS, the community foundation, the rec commission, maybe even the senior center and the 3 churches. I think if we had maybe a quarterly meeting of at least one representative from each of those to throw ideas around, well, come up with what can we do to help, because there's so many resources that can be working together that currently we're not working together. I don't know how that looks logistically, but I'd like to see that happen. I also thought of one last thing. Sorry to go back a question, but on the 1% sales tax, John, if we don't institute that, it will result in an increase in property taxes, because it's either a mill levy or a 1% sales tax. We can't do both, but we have to do one or the other. So the choice was the 1% sales tax instead of increasing the mill levy.
I mentioned Thursday night, it's gotta come from both sides. You've gotta have buy-in from the administration, and you've gotta have the participation from the city. Rachel and I were just talking last night, if you go to most city events, okay, you'll see Scott there, you'll see myself there, Missy will be there, you'll see council members there. I know Nicole comes to all the city council meetings, but typically seeing some board members there is pretty rare. So yeah, I do see Nicole and I do see Emily. So I think, as Weston pointed out in his speech, getting the board involved more as well is important too. I think when the community goes out and they just see the principle, it's kind of a bad image. I think, and I'm not trying to point fingers or anything, but as a school, you got a face in the school, and that person needs to be visible as well. So other than that, just like Josh said, getting everybody involved. I know Rachel's had a lot of instances where she gets calls about sports physicals, and we thought this group was doing it, no, this group was doing it, and like I said, if we could find a way to get some sort of community together that takes care of that would probably eliminate a lot of issues.
Any other questions?
I have one.
Let's go with her first, and then I'll come back to you, if that's okay.
Yep.
So you all have mentioned bringing the community together, businesses in, kind of building more revenue and potentially to the town. How do you propose getting that out? I know that in the world of social media, but maybe for those that don't have social media, do you have a way that you think that you could bring the community or more attention to Burton, especially if the budget is cut?
Well, I think I've only told one or two people about this idea, so this will be new, but I do believe at one point our school owned rights to a newspaper. And I would, as part of that group of school, city, community foundation, rec, all these groups that I talked about, I would like to look into if there was a way to resurrect that, since our local paper does not cover us. Maybe there would be a way for all of those parties to work together to republish the school paper, to go out to people in the mail. As you said, social media, not everybody has access to it. Not everybody wants to use it, especially in Burton. We are an older community. So if a newspaper went out or was available for people, it doesn't have to be a big one. It could be smaller than the Charter Courier is. Just something that spells out what's going on with the city council, what's going on with the school board, what's going on with the foundation, the rest of the community. I don't know if that's even possible. I don't know if the school still owns rights to that paper, but I know one time they did, and I'd like to see if maybe that's an option.
Great.
I personally know that at one point, the Harvey County Independent had offered to send someone out to the school and have them work with the journalism class on writing articles, and because they're looking for future employers too, and I'm not quite sure what happened with that. I think with the rec board putting the digital sign out there, I think that's helped with a lot of communication issues to open that up. I do like what Scott pointed out with the social media. One thing we need to be careful of, and it frustrates me to see it on the Burton community page, is other prospective people that might be thinking about moving here, reading all that hate and discontent is probably not helping our situation. All right, so like Scott said, if we can just keep things positive, I think that will help draw people into, because if I was thinking about moving here and saw this and that and some of the things that are being said, that's like a red flag, and it's disappointing to see because we do have a great town, we do have great citizens, and it's a shame to see the negativity a lot on these posts.
Well, my first thought when you said you don't have social media was bless you, because it will stress you out. And even social media today with AI coming in, you don't even know what's real, what's true. But as far as the Burton community page and what's happening, there is a lot of negativity, so bless you for not following that. And as far as bringing new businesses, you know, if you're someone that personally wants to bring a new business, there are grants that will help people start up a small business. And so you can approach either the council or the foundation, and we can look for you to see if there's something that you personally want to bring to Burton. I do know that there's been people talking to me about starting a bakery, starting like a little consignment shop. There's been some other business ideas thrown around, more restaurants, you know, something out. Do we bring it downtown? Do we bring it out on the highway? Where would be a good place on the highway? You know, you get the Highway 50 corridor that will pay more of the sales tax for everyone. So what's the best in that? As far as communication, I know Kim does a great job of sending out a newsletter every month with the water bill. Sometimes that has some lot of good information, so if there's something that someone wants to see, maybe give her a call and say, hey, or even, you know, I know Dropbox, the suggestions in it may or may not be a benefit or a positive thing, but if you've got some great ideas, absolutely bring it to them, and she'll post that up there for you, give more information.
This might be a quick one anyway. Is anybody willing to go against the attorney's advice? And is that a way our city could save money? Is just not paying for an attorney anymore and doing what we want outside of legal advice? Is there, you know, just curious.
I think that's dangerous, especially in today's world with lawsuits and all that. I think that is, if you need that legal advice to now, is Brad the fastest to get stuff done? You know, when we sit here and said, I'd like to write that up in 3 days, I think probably Melissa will laugh at that one because she knows it's not coming to her in 3 days. But sidestepping legal advice would never. Challenging him, of course. I mean, I think everybody should challenge some of the things he says, but as far as legal, he has more knowledge than us average citizens that are on here, so.
Well, again, challenging, sure. I have no problem questioning the attorney and making him or her provide proof that what they say is accurate. I am not objectionable to, you know, looking at different attorneys. I don't think Brad's a terrible attorney. I do think sometimes he takes longer than we would wish he took. But as far as going against legal counsel, no. No, I don't think that would be wise for any municipality to, especially with insurance and liability, and I can't see that happening.
Yeah, short answer is I went to school to be a teacher, he went to school to be a lawyer. He probably knows what he's talking about, and with all the danger of lawsuits out there, I think it's a terrible idea to even think about going without an attorney or listening to the advice of an attorney. If you come to city council members, usually we'll ask, okay, what are our options, Brad, to do this? So, you know, we can know all the legal ways, and, you know, is there more than one way to get this accomplished that won't get us as a city in trouble? But yeah, going without an attorney is not a suggestible idea.
I know we ran a little long over our time allotment. Is there any other quick questions or comments? Otherwise, something we've probably been guilty of. Does anybody like to make a closing comment? Start with you, Leslie.
I don't want to speak for people, so I would always hope not. But, you know, I do want to thank everybody for coming, and I want everybody in the city to know that we are residents, just like yourselves. We don't enjoy paying taxes any more than the next person, but we have to as well. And you know, I lived in Wichita before where the taxes were a little bit higher, property values were a little bit higher, you know, so I do come here and there's some things that probably, you know, that for me personally, okay, I'm willing to pay more for this than this to get where we need to go. But raising taxes is not an easy decision to make, and, you know, it was hard on them. I was at those meetings when they made those decisions, listening to Jacqueline talk about the budget, and if we have to raise taxes, we do, and it affects us as well. So just know that all the council members, either current or even future, they're just like everybody else. And I noticed on Facebook, some people think that they're lining their pockets with all this money that they're getting paid. It's basically a volunteer job. So anytime you see anybody up here wanting to be on the council, or your mayor, it basically is a volunteer job. So just for closing, just kind of remember that. What you say and how you go.
I'd just like to say, I think no matter who gets elected, patience is going to be a key word. We did not get in the situation we are in quickly. It's happened over time. You can't jump out of it quickly. It's going to take time. It could take 5 years, it could take 10 years. I do believe the current council has plans and is working on it. It may not be visible, but if you come to the meetings, you'll see it. I also want to thank Gavin, who's not even a voter for the city school district. Sure, he's here to video this and make this available to everybody on the internet that wants to see. That's pretty much it.
I think we've moved in a very positive direction in the last few years. Obviously, you know, the 1% sales tax, it sucks, and no one wants to pay more, but I think that we've done our due diligence up here, and a lot of you guys that can't, or people that don't show up to the city council, I don't think you guys, I hope you guys understand how much work that lady over there puts in. Yeah, he's talking, so Leslie talked about how much people would line their money. I think if we gave Lucy an hourly, if we gave her a salary, she'd be making about $0.05 an hour with all the time she puts in outside of this and all that. So I just want to thank you. Whatever happens, I think you've done a good job, and I really appreciate all the work that you put in outside of the hours to make sure that we're getting the information we need.
Thank you. Let's give them all a round of applause. All of our mayor candidates, last.
I do want to make a comment, because it's on public record in the video. None of the street funds have ever been reallocated anywhere because they are limited to only street funds. So I'm not sure if they were talking about something else, but the actual street 1% sales tax street fund is 1% sales tax street fund. There are other funds. Yeah, there are other funds. I just wanted to clarify we're talking about the 1% street fund. Okay.
Let's move on.
I just wanted that correct. Just know that street fund is not used.
So we have our mayor candidates.
Okay, so we grab two. Okay.
It's live.
I'm Mark Burrton. I'm running for mayor. I was there 16 years ago, for 5 years before that. City council for 5 years before that. I lived in Burrton all my life. I handed out a sheet of paper to give my history. I'm not going to take the time today I lived here 47 years. I have an accounting degree. My big focus on the city is streets. Streets finances. And the other one, last 2 years, we lost over $60,000 in the gas fund. It's an enterprise fund that the city actually should be making money in, but we're not. Places that we probably improve that. It's going to take time to get back to work. Not getting out of the gas fund or the water fund that would help pay for streets. Our utility funds need definitely look at to why they're not making any money. On streets, I also talked to the gentleman because he's also in charge of the streets, and he told out they're required to get 3 quotes on streets. Pearson is who they're using, which is their company out of Wichita. We also had one for APAC, which I know the city uses APAC, so probably possibly, I'm assuming, that we have. APAC was double the amount of Pearson for the same street per project. So I think we can get stuff requoted and save money and actually have more money to do more in streets than what we're doing now. Chip seal, dirt streets are not an option for me. I don't know why we're even entertaining dirt streets, because they're actually going to cost more money to maintain. Now you got to run a road grader down once a week, if not every other week, based on the weather. Most of our streets have them after that filled out. That I know of from being on prior council and stuff, that actually have a good base underneath them. All they need to be done is sealed again, or 2-inch overlay asphalt. There's nothing more that needs to be done. Some we need to do definitely lift the water lines and stuff like that. But that all needs to be done in a comprehensive plan. It's going to take 6 months at least to get that comprehensive plan figured out what we need to do. My drive is to see something done next year. We do have over $600,000 sitting in the street fund, which is right now being designated for 3 blocks. Is that really the best use of that money, or should we a lot of our other streets go to south, North Burton Avenue, where I live. I don't think the city's put any money into it in 20 years. So, I mean, that's even when my time was out on council. So, I have to blame myself for that, but it also at that time was a better street, so it wasn't the one that we worried about. So I just want to see the streets improve, see finances improve, and it's just going to take time. That's really all I have.
Okay, I'm going to stand up. Sound good for sound? Okay, I'm more of a speech person. So ladies and gentlemen, it's my privilege to address you today as candidate for mayor of Burton for the 2026-2029 term. Since January 2024, I've had the honor of serving as your mayor. While self-promotion is not my typical approach, feedback from our recent town hall reminded me of the importance of communicating my efforts and contributions many may not be aware of, many hours of work undertaken by myself to advance our community. My commitment to transparency and accountability in leadership is unwavering. I prioritize diligent service, proactive problem solving, and consistent support for Burton, guided by a sense of duty rather than a desire for recognition. As you consider your decision in this election, I encourage you to reflect on the changing expectations of political leadership since 2020. Our society has evolved, and strategies that were effective 6, 12, 20 years ago no longer produce the same results. Reviewing the past offers insights into Burton's progress and informs our path forward. The past is not the way to lead into the future. The role of mayor requires more than dedication and hard work. It demands a leader who excels in communication, actively seeks to build professional networks, and inspires community members to collaborate for shared goals. Effective communication is essential for keeping residents informed and engaged, while strong networking skills help forge valuable partnerships both within Burton and beyond. By rallying the collective efforts of our citizens, I aim to make our initiatives more efficient and impactful, ensuring that every attempt benefits from the talents and commitment of our community. These attributes are vital for advancing Burton's interests and achieving lasting progress. My dedication is steadfast. I routinely devote more than 8 hours per week to city affairs, which include, but are not limited to, overseeing staff, budget meetings, council government meetings, training with the League of Municipalities, communication with the city attorney, communication with the business and volunteer organization in Burton, collaborative meetings with the school, EMS and fire, keeping the council in the know of the immediate pressing issues of the community, along with many other hats that I wear as mayor. In times of crisis, such as the derecho storm, I contribute to 80 hours in less than 30 days to ensure the city's well-being. The mayoral stipend of $138 a month is not any form of motivation for me to desire to be your mayor. In fact, I've already during the budget work sessions and will if elected, at the first meeting, propose that the council and mayor release their compensations for the 2026 year and I will encourage the council to secure that money for a grant writer so that we can ensure Burton's future instead of paying for the civil servant positions of our community. My leadership is shaped by values including perseverance, stewardship, and collaboration. Effective governance in the post-2020 era requires adaptive management, the cultivation of teamwork, and resilience under public scrutiny. I seek innovative solutions to optimize resources, recognizing the property tax revenue covers only 40% of essential expenditures. For context, the ad valorem property tax in 2024 was $240,000. That's what we received from property tax, while our general fund expenses totaled $600,000. It is incumbent upon the mayor to pursue opportunities beyond the reliance of the taxpayers. Establishing strong relationships within and outside the community is essential. Over the last 2 years, I have actively engaged with developers and businesses interested in Burton, maintaining realistic yet optimistic dialogues to facilitate sustainable growth. This collaborative strategy has brought new vendors and continued business success, demonstrating Burton's supportive environment. More businesses moving in are on the horizon. Collaboration with organizations such as the Economic Development Committee remains integral in advancing major initiatives, including infrastructure, improvements, industry development, and community surveys. The trust built in the recent years underpins these achievements. The mayor's role is fundamentally about driving progress, alleviating the taxpayer burden, and ensuring the successful completion of key projects. I invite the community to imagine Burton's next decade characterized by strategic infrastructure, enhancements, diversified economic activity, and improved quality of life reminiscent of early prosperity. Thank you.
So at this point, we'll open it up for questions. Who would like to go first?
Being mayor is a very busy job. So being a mayor is a very busy job, and you've done it before. So more specifically for you, but why now are you deciding that you want to come back into this race and make a difference, now? And as far as you, what drives you to continue to want to do this? Because I know it can keep happening again, you have a family, and so that takes away from your family life. So what is making you think that this term will be different than previous terms?
That's a good question. What drives me to be mayor is, actually I aspired to do it in my 20s. So it was something that was on my list and I never even thought I'd get the opportunity. When I got appointed, I was excited, and I have to say that the stuff that I've been doing, we're already in progress with Mayor Robbie Reiniger. It's not like I just took some sort of brain and said, we're gonna go a direction. These things were implemented and or going forward. You just have to keep going and not stop. And I have a supportive family, I have supportive friends, and I grew up in Burton. I've been gone for a while, but I grew up in Burton. And I think Burton is a beautiful community, and why not serve the community that you live in?
The reason why I'm getting back into it is I got out of it because I had a daughter that was 2 years old, and I wanted to spend time with family. She's now off to college, out of the house. I have free time now, and also I'm a doer. I like to fix things, and right now the city needs fixed. I've done other projects. I've had a lot of churches that have asked me to do that because they had thought something was going wrong, and I've dove into it to help them get their finances back in line. I've lived here 47 years. I built a house 25 years ago here. I am totally vested in this community. I've been on the volunteer fire department for 30. I've been in EMR for 15 years. I don't know any other town than this town, and I don't want to see it go by. And I don't feel that we're headed in the right direction. It's I guess, where I'm at with it. And because I've attended the council meetings since March, and the finances scare me of where they're headed. Currently this year, which even makes it even more interesting at the last council meeting, the city's already over budget on their general fund by, I believe, $25,000, which we still have 3 more months. You cannot be able to budget on any fund at the end of the year for the auditor, or they will write you up. You cannot have a budget violation or cash violation at the end of the year. And you have to work on your finances to where that does not end up happening. There may have been some purchases in the year that I saw that now looking at the budget, maybe should have been held off.
You said, who else has questions? Who's next? Jim.
First question, since our city doesn't have a city manager, how would you manage day-to-day operations and support the city staff?
Or be persistent.
The city of Burton cannot afford a city administrator. The mayor is there to facilitate, to get stuff done, but it's also the council members' responsibility to get stuff done. If I'm mayor, council members will be assigned certain portions of the city to keep track of and keep an eye on. The way my job works, I would be available basically every day after 3:30, 4 o'clock every day. So I don't work Friday afternoons either. So I have plenty of time available for that, along with all my other bit, so that we can get stuff done.
So my answer is, I have been doing this. One of the reasons that Rodney appointed me to city council in 2023 was he wanted the HR to be improved, and that was what my associate's degree was in. And I was the EMS director and education director for Boys and Girls Club, so I've had several HR positions. In regard to the city of the third class, the mayor oversees the staff and the council makes the rules. And I asked staff when I first came on what they've done in the past, and they said that they had tried the council overseeing individual departments, and there was usually just one council member that would achieve the goal and the other ones were not able to do it. Maybe not because they weren't interested, but because it wasn't their gifting. And so when meeting with the council, we decided to do liaisons where they would go out to other community things and bring information in, and that I would focus on the HR part of the staff. And so that is what I've been navigating. I give about 8 hours a week. I'm an independent business owner, and it's worked very well.
Next question, I know, like, we talk a lot about the streets, and I know the streets are extremely important, but without talking about the streets, what is something that you would do to help the city grow and improve the city?
Lucy?
I will continue to do what I've been doing. I've been working with T.A. Martins, I might be saying that wrong. It is the real estate company that has the property west of town. I've been working with the EDC, and I actually have a vendor coming into town full-time during the week to offer a service that the community doesn't have. So I'm continually reaching out. I've talked to multiple realtors for the different properties that we have here in town. My idea is that the only way to offload the property tax from people is to get businesses in. And the only way to get businesses in is to have a friendly base who wants to have the tough conversations of what would it take, how would we do it, and if they say no, being able to go to the next person.
What was the question?
Without talking about the streets, like, what are some things you would do in the city to help it improve and grow?
My goal is, businesses are great to have, we need them. But we also need more affordable housing and apartment complexes. Anything that creates property tax, which if we could get 20 more houses built in town based on that revenue alone would help considerably compared to not, I mean, businesses don't help with sales tax, but actually having more people in town will help because they're going to bring sales tax due to all the online shopping that's done. That increases our sales tax revenue off that 1% that, I'm sorry, going back to the streets, but it takes the burden away from the streets that we can use elsewhere.
So my last question would be on that, the 1% sales tax, like, so it's on the ballot for the November election, and say that doesn't pass for some reason, how would you propose funding the streets?
The only way to fund the streets in is with tax, which based on, and this is a scary one, I don't want it based on the value of my house, to cover the sales tax shortfall would be at least, based on the mill levy of the city, is around $5,000 a mill. We're looking at 20 mil increase, which would take the mill levy to 100 mils, which I do not want to see that on my house at all. I mean, no, I do not. That's why I really, that's how much more of a burden without the sales tax is going to put on us it's the property taxes are going to go up. That's the only way, or no streets are going to be done. I mean, that's kind of what I see in the budget, what I've been able to see based on that.
My response would be, please tell your neighbors to vote 1%. Yes, vote 1% sales tax. My second response would be back to the drawing board. It's not that we're forever, sunk. If something doesn't get voted, it just means we're back to the drawing board.
One more thing on that, about the sales tax. If it doesn't pass this year, we technically still have another year to try to get it passed next year. Because it doesn't sunset until next year.
That would require a special election.
Which would require a special election. So, which will cost the city more money, but it's an option out there if it doesn't pass, which hopefully it passes.
One thing I want to talk about is the new houses that are coming in. They're cute, but they have trailer home steps, and they don't look safe. I mean, and they don't look big. And if you're trying to encourage big families to come in, I think you're going to have a safer entrance into the houses. So that's all I wanted to say.
I have not observed the steps on the newer houses. I know that at the last council meeting, I had made a suggestion about, asking if we were to sell that one next free lot, to recommend sizes of house and be 2-bedroom,
bath minimum and stuff. And it was a unanimous discussion that when people build on their own property, then they get to make their choices as long as it's within code. So,
But if you look at the steps, I don't know if that one on Colorado, I don't know if my foot would even fit on the top step.
yeah, we do have a code enforcer, and he does do pre, middle, and post inspections. And so I don't have an answer. I can sure follow up with our code enforcement and ask, but I do know when people build, it is their choice as long as with code of what they build on their property.
Yeah, but these houses aren't being built for people. I mean, the realtor is building them. And I'm just thinking we need to encourage better housing for the people once. If I drove past that and I had a big family, I'd say, there's no way I'm trying to move stuff into the house to be dangerous.
I mean, based on current building code and stuff, I have no research on this, but I'm gonna assume it's based on our building code that the city has enforced at this time, that it meets the standards. But those are minimum standards. The city, we as a city could increase what's required for like front entrances if we want to. I mean, that would be a council decision to add to the building code. You know, the city can make, very strict rules on stuff. I know a company I work for, they wanted to have parking lot. The city had a rule that you had to have X amount of square footage of greenscape to how many parking spots you have. I mean, that's one of their ordinances. So the city can enact more ordinances, but then if we enact ordinances, the city must enforce those ordinances. So it's kind of there's nothing the city can do about it now. I mean, if somebody buys a house, they don't like it, they can tear it out, because it is, I agree with you. I don't like the looks of it, but that's my personal opinion. Somebody else may like it.
My guess is most people wouldn't, with families, especially with little kids, trying to go up and down the steps.
And I would believe that at that point, the realtor would realize and the builder would realize that when you make a change, this isn't helping myself, so. Anyway.
I think Leslie had a question.
I've actually got three. Okay. One, throwing this back at you guys, the question was thrown at the council. What do you plan to do to prevent from when people come to the council and it becomes a bottleneck, or things keep getting pushed on down the line? What do you plan on doing to prevent it from being a bottleneck?
The way I handle it is that most items, unless there has to be further research done, it can be discussed out in the meeting. It may take 3 hours, but we're going to sit there and hash it out until we're done. I mean, you got to do due diligence to get stuff accomplished. There are things that I've seen, if they were tabled, I'm not sure why they were tabled. It could have just been more discussion, you could have figured it out. Being mayor, I want to see more, if I would become mayor, I want to see more interaction at a city council meeting with council members talking back and forth and arguing. I mean, and then come to a compromise to fix whatever that issue is. So, the biggest bottleneck will be the attorney on if he doesn't have the answer that night, to get the answer for the next meeting, but you push him, you have a meeting at the next meeting so you can solve it. Most items I don't want to see go past 2 meetings, because then it just draws out. I had stuff when I was on council that did that and it never worked. So, new plan, if I become mayor, we're going to have the stuff solved 1 or 2 meetings, maybe 3 at the most. So.
I find that interesting because I do believe that most of our stuff is solved between 2 to 3 meetings, unless there's an ordinance that takes 90 days to write. In regards to meetings, when I became mayor, I got follow-up from Rodney, the council, and employees, and our lawyer. And because of the minimal amount that we pay our lawyer and the minimal amount count and pay our employees, I was asked to keep the meetings at an hour and a half maximum. What the butt can't stand, the brain won't think about. So that was an initial, employees were not going to stand, or not going to sit there for 3 hours, right? Council argued something out that wasn't even regarding to them. And our attorney, his time is limited, and we don't pay him much. So our meetings stay at 90 minutes. We made a public forum policy come back, and if anything's tabled, it's usually tabled because evidence wasn't there enough to go with it. A lot of things aren't tabled because we've been able to talk about it with the community, not talk about it as a board, but information has been able to be sent out ahead of time, which means some things go faster. I would hope that most of you that have been attending the meeting will see that sometimes things get put on the agenda on Friday and the meeting's on Monday, which means neither the mayor nor the council had any time to do any research. And one of the biggest complaints I had from the last council, some of them not on anymore, was decisions were made so rapidly that in the end they realized spending money shouldn't have been the answer, but they didn't have enough information. So we maintain mostly 2 meetings. The only time things have been tabled is when really it's an intense decision and we need to count the cost.
My next question, and it kind of piggybacks from the young lady there asked the council. We talk about bringing new businesses into town. What is the process? What would be your process for someone who wants to bring, because I myself have been discussing bringing a business into town. So what process would you tell me I need to follow to make that happen?
First, I would encourage you to talk to Network Kansas to do a business plan, because thus far what I've come up against is people come to the town, they wanted to do business, they had no business plan, and therefore we spent a lot of hours discussing a business just to find out that they didn't even have the money or the funding to do it. So my initial discussion is we have the Chamber of Commerce in Newton who will get you set up with Network Kansas. They will help you with a business plan, and then bring that business plan into a meeting with the council, or it can be with the councilor, it can just be with the mayor, maybe the president. That's how we've kind of done it. And planning and zoning is the next part of that, to find out, not necessarily having a meeting with them, but let's look up the planning and zoning and see if it fits. And if it doesn't fit, then let's see what it's going to take to make it fit. And then from there, typically we have an executive session, and I can't remember the title of the executive session, but we meet with the council and the potential business owner to discuss the idea, and then it usually falls into place after that.
Not knowing all the rules that the city has currently in place, it's hard for me to answer this question. From what I experience-wise, person should have a business plan, what their location is, what the building is going to look like, and the use. And to me, that's the starting point to discuss with the council. To me, if all those fall into play, to me, the building inspector would be the one that would, and I may be totally wrong on what I'm saying here because I don't know the answer to this. But I think it could be a simplified process, because if somebody has the money to put the business up, the city just needs to bless that it's in the right zoning and right, all that, and it goes. There's not a 5-step plan or whatever that we have to go through all these processes. If you own the land and it's zoned correctly, I can't say no to it. You know. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, and then my final question is, but the council, we all pretty much want the same thing for the citizens, we all say the same thing. What sets, because why should I vote for you, why should I vote for you? What sets you apart from each other that is going to sway my decision either way? I mean, what makes you the better candidate? What sets you apart?
I'm a doer. I don't, if it needs to get done, it needs to get done. And it needs to be done in a timely manner. If it's a complaint, it needs to go through the proper channels. If it's like the building stuff, it needs to go through the proper channels. I have an accounting degree for finance. I've done the treasurer job for 15, 16 years now. I can't remember, I've done it too long. I've had a lot of knowledge on government budgets, government audits. I've lived here 25 years and I just don't want to see this town. I don't want my property taxes going up anymore if I can help it. That's the bottom line. I've kind of surveyed all the houses values in town, and where I live, I'd be hit harder than most if we raise taxes, and I don't want that. And I don't want dirt streets. There will not be a dirt street.
I think what sets me apart from my opponent is my personality and my desire to network with people who are wanting to come into the community, wanting a representative of the city. The mayor doesn't get to decide what she gets to enforce or what he gets to enforce. The mayor is the representative, the face of the town. And I would say in the last 2 years, the things that have been brought into town and how the community or how people outside the community have received me has been extremely positive. I represent the community well and with a smile and with optimism and with zeal, and I'm willing to have the tough conversations. I'm also willing to give praise. And I'm willing to get to know each of my council members on a personal basis so we can work together and personalities. I love the fact that we have committees in place now and boards in place, that they're working not only independently, but they're communicating with the mayor and the council. I believe I bring networking and an outward personality that navigates people towards Burton, people towards productivity. I love when we have volunteers. I admire them. I don't always have to agree with what everybody's doing to get the fact that it's getting done. So that's what I believe separates the two of us, is mostly just our personality